just made with the TSA agent roleplay, and Pat Down was a custom ASMR video. So yeah, how amazing is that? That you can book that for yourself, and thank you to the person who gave me permission to upload publicly as well. I will ask for your permission if you want. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into the video. It's kind of gonna be like a story time format about my life from ages of 1 through 29, which I'm currently 29, and just, kind of like a draw my life, talk about my whole entire life, from the time I was born to now, in the present. So this can be a kind of a longer one. So if you want more storytime videos like this from me, tap the red subscribe button down below, hit all notifications. When you do, I upload every day. Thank you. So, yes, I was born September 13, 1994, and you can see this when you type Tony Bomboni birthday. It's pretty obvious. It's on Google everywhere, and I was born in Chicago, Illinois, and I weighed 7 pounds, 11 ounces, so I was a little bit of a chubby baby. And I was born at exactly 12 at noon. My mom told me that all 3 hands on the clock were at 12 o'clock when I was born. Go to your bed, buddy. It's funny, I'll put the bed there and he won't even lay on it. He'll lay like next to it, By the way, don't you love my holiday pillow? I'm not gonna spoil it, but I'm gonna show it for another video. But yes, I was born to a family, so basically a father, a mother, and a brother. My brother is 3 years and 2 months older than me. So that makes him 32 right now. And so he's a July Cancer baby. So we're both summer babies. Although I'm on the cusp almost of fall. And my mom is a Pisces. My dad is a Virgo, like me. He was actually born a week after me. Not literally, but like, you know what I mean. Many years ago. And you guys know my mom's name is Tanya. Or Tatiana. But, people call her Mama Bomboni. Tanya for short. And my brother is Dan, or Daniel, or Danny, whichever you want to call him. And I'm actually Antonio, as you guys know, but you guys call me Tony. Tony Bomboni is not my real name. But I don't really like the name Antonio very much. Nobody calls me that. There's always like an abbreviated name for people anyway, so there's that. So I grew up basically, I would probably say in a normal home. A healthy environment. It wasn't anything bad of the sort as far as I remember. There was no early trauma really growing up, and I was raised normally, mostly by my mother. My father always worked as far as I was concerned or remember, so my mom and I pretty much quickly became almost like best friends, right? Like, I don't want to say like the favorite child, but sort of, and that's typical of a younger sibling. It's like, for some reason, the youngest one gets most of the attention. And I And so, yeah, so we became close. And so I was always closer to my mother, naturally. And we even look very similar. People always say my mom is like the female version of me. I'm like the male version of her. It's just funny how that works, you know, how similar you end up looking like your parents sometimes. But still different, right? So, obviously, I don't have any memory from when I was 1. Apparently, I went to, so I'm going to start from like 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how I'm going to go, okay? And I'll have to remember the year. So that was like, up until I was 1, it was 1995. So, I turned 1 in the year 1995, okay? So I was told that we went to Disney World. I've seen pictures. I think even like, what do you call it, VHS or cassette tapes or like some recorders that have shown that we went to Florida quite often growing up and traveled there. So when I was 1, I guess we went to Disney World the first time. And it sucks because I have no memory of that whatsoever. And I only went when I was like 10, and then I went when I was 24, and that's it. So, and it's crazy how much I remember how it looked like. Like, it looks pretty much the same when I was 10 versus 24. But maybe we remember more than we think, you know. Maybe I got a lot of mental impressions when I went at 1 year old. But anyway. So, basically, that's that. That's all I was told about when I was 1. We went to Disney World. Like, that was it. Like, the 90s weren't much. It wasn't anything special, you know. I guess, like, the world today, there's just so much in today's era. And, so when I was 2, I have no idea what happened when I was 2. I'm going to be honest, so I'm going to skip to 3. 1997. All I remember what I was shown was, me sitting in front of a TV like this, really grumpy and angry, and you could see my sassy attitude even early on. 26 years ago. That's crazy, right? And she found it so funny, and she took a picture of it, and she always called me like an entertainer or a kid that always liked to make people laugh or smile, and just really silly and playful and, you know, childish. And I remember being photographed in like a water park. I think we went to Wisconsin that year, or was I 5? I don't remember, but I think it was 3. I was really little. And, you know, we always went somewhere. There was never like a year without either a vacation or just going somewhere as a family, and that's really great, you know. And I think that's what kind of made me, honestly, maybe a little spoiled early on, because it was never, I would say, a dull moment, right? But of course there were years where we didn't go at all, because, you know, the recession, the Great Recession and all that stuff really hit our family hard, and I'll get into that. But yeah, so when I was 4, that was 98. Guys, again, up until like 5, I don't remember much, really. So I'll skip to 5. I almost died drowning in a swimming pool. And that was awful. I still remember it to this day. That's something that doesn't leave you, that stays with you. And I would say that was the earliest trauma I have experienced. But it wasn't directly by, well, actually, that's wrong. It was directly caused by someone's neglect. Because my family told these ladies, there were like 3 friends, grown ladies who were at the swimming pool then. They were like in their 40s or 50s, and they were just hanging out, you know, conversing, playing cards with each other, and they were supposed to watch me while they were gone for like 10 minutes or so, right? They came back really fast, otherwise I wouldn't be here today. because my mom had a bad feeling, and see how connected she is with me. But basically they were supposed to watch me. They didn't even keep a damn eye on me. And yeah, we were in Florida on a vacation, and so it's funny, the only things I remember are the vacations, right? Like, I don't remember my day-to-day life. Like, it's like it didn't even happen. It's weird, but anyway. And basically I went in the pool thinking, oh, I could swim, or oh, I can just hold on to the rails or the edges. But there was a thing at the bottom of the pool that sucked the water in so that it could spew it out elsewhere, like filter, right? So I was so little, of course that thing drew me in. Like, I was so close to it, and it kept pulling me in. And I couldn't swim out. And I let go of the rail for a brief second thinking, oh, well, I got this. I can swim back. Nope. And the bottom was too deep. And I forgot how small I was as a 5-year-old, of course. So, yeah, like, even if it was only like, what is it, like 3 feet, you're still gonna get sucked in, especially if you don't know how to swim and you're only but barely, like, what, at that age, maybe 3 feet in height, right? So there was no way for me to make it out of that. So I just remember slowly being sucked in, and then it's like not being able to fight the water. I went to the bottom and pushed up so I could lift my head and say, help, help. But they were so in their own world, and my tiny voice probably was like a little mouse, so they could barely hear me probably. Or maybe they thought I was just playing games, and that's later what they told my family. They thought I was just joking. And this is why it's hard to tell when someone is drowning. So, yeah, keep an eye on your kids, please. Especially if it looks like they're just playing pretend for attention, because we've all done that, okay? I remember doing that when I was 8. I'm like, oh, I'm pretending to drown because I want people to, draw their eyes on me. At that age, it's like, sometimes it's like all about you, right? So, yeah, before I knew it, I kept swallowing the water. I couldn't hold my breath anymore, and it was so painful in my chest. And, like, the pain alone made me kind of black out and just kind of give way. And I thought, this was it. It's my time. It's over. I'm going back home. And I just remember feeling very sad that they couldn't hear me, and very angry that they were not paying attention to me. And those were the last 2 feelings I remember. And then before I knew it, I felt this force beam down in the water and scoop me up and pull me out really fast, like it was overwhelming. And that in itself was painful, because it was like pushing up against me while my lungs were already flooded with water. And I remember blacking out in and out of consciousness, and I just remember waking up on the beach chair, and my mom there screaming and like shaking me and like extremely worried. And I remember my father was yelling at the ladies, and my brother was just stunned, like, too stunned to speak. He looked extremely worried, and I'm sure they thought I was a goner, because I'm sure her reaction, like her bad feeling, and then she came back, and then she saw my limp body at the bottom of the pool, and she just ran, I bet, like she was fast. And, I'm really thankful that she did that, that she trusted her intuition and came back. That's that motherly vibe. Like, if you get a bad feeling, you're probably right, especially about your children, because, that would have sucked to end to only live for 5 years, and like, as soul, that would be frustrating. Like, damn, I only got to, so obviously I was meant to still be around, I knew that. I still had a reason to be here. I didn't know then, but looking back, I was still young. And I just remember crying and crying and crying when I woke up because I was so thankful my mom saved my life. And I was so scared, and yeah, that was one of the worst things ever. And very, very painful. That was a very painful way to almost go. So, yeah, thank God I was fine after that. And it didn't cause health issues. I never got, I don't think I got a checkup after that, did I? No, I don't think so. But, yeah. So I'm sure that shaped me in the way I am today. So anyway, moving on. When I was 6 years old, that was the year 2000, and all I remember that year was Christmas holiday time, because everyone's like Y2K, right? Everyone thought the world was ending, and so we grew up in a very interesting time. My dog is even sensitive, right? I said the world ending, and he freaked out. And so, yeah, December 1999. So we were all just kind of gathered in this beautiful apartment we lived in Chicago at the time. And my mom always had the nicest decor in the house. It's me. Stop it. It's me. You want to say hi to Poopsies? Good boy. And yeah, I remember having this new Christmas gift, of a train set. And it was this big train set that goes in circles, and it kind of smelled like gas. I think you filled it with water to keep it running. Not actual fuel, but it had that smell like fuel. And it totally smelled the whole living room, but I loved that freaking train set. I even had one of those carpets that was with the roads on it, so you could put your Hot Wheels on it and whatever else. And so, yeah, it was really fun time to be alive. I loved Christmas. It was always one of my favorite holiday seasons, along with Thanksgiving. I remember the big old turkey, Every year we've had a Thanksgiving, I'm so grateful for that. I'm really grateful that we always had some food to eat every day, and just, as normal as we could keep things together, nothing too crazy, and just a normal family, even though it was stressful for my mom at the time, but I won't go into details because that's her life, her storybook. I cannot speak on behalf of someone else when I'm not in their shoes. So, but I will focus on me for this specific story time. My mom deserves a whole story. She deserves a novel of her own someday. She really does, because she's been through a lot. But let's stick to the subject, so this does not take an eternity. So nothing happened. Obviously, New Year's came by. We always stayed up as a family every New Year as well, and counted down the clock, the New York festivities, right? That was aired on television to billions, I would say, across the world. And yeah, everything was normal. January 1st, 2000 was just another winter day. So that's all I remember. But then comes September 11, 2001, and I am 2 days away from turning 7 years old. And I'm in kindergarten class. No, I'm sorry, I'm in first grade. So yes, I went to kindergarten as a 6-year-old too. So I was very shy. Let's backtrack a little. And I went to 2 years of kindergarten. Then I did first grade. I never attended preschool. And again, I think that shapes who I am today, because I was pretty much, I don't want to say sheltered, but maybe not socialized that much early on. And that affects how I see people today and how I interact socially. So, yeah, I was crying the first day of school, the first ever day of school. I was crying. That's that. And then when I went to first grade, I saw someone else crying the first day, even in second grade, and it didn't feel so bad anymore. I wanted to cry seeing them cry, but I didn't, because I saw how much attention was drawn to that student. I was like, I don't want all that attention on me, so my eyes did become watery, because I empathized with her, and I felt afraid of my first day of school too, but I held back all the tears, and no one noticed, thankfully. But anyway, so kindergarten was fun. I just remember being in kindergarten a lot, and it was in this Korean school, and I grew up on a Korean street in Chicago, and it was all Korean. Like, the stores were Korean, the people, right? Like, it was just Korean. And so the teachers were like, one of the teachers was Korean, the students were Korean, some of them, and I was always in a very diverse, even in the first grade, I was in a very diverse type of public school, and we had all walks of life from all cultures, Middle East, Eastern European, Asian, Indian, African, like all, like South America, like the whole world basically, and I'm glad I did, because I feel like, you know, if I grew up in a very, again, like sheltered or private school environment or only one group of people, like that would make me very, like, I'm not saying for everyone, but me personally, it would probably make me very ignorant and very not aware of the world out there, you know, not aware that you know, like, we're not the only ones around, right? Like, there's a lot of different people on this planet, and but we're all the same, right, at the same time, you know. So I very much enjoyed kindergarten. I remember they fed us like cheese while we watched movies. I remember peeing the bed, the cots a lot. I always acted out. I was always rebellious. Like, during nap time, I never followed the rules ever. Like, even when they say bathroom break, only this time, like, nah, I would go anyway, right? Like, so there's that. Yeah, I definitely did not like to conform to rules, that's for sure. And so, I'm kind of still like that to this day. If the sign says, only one person waiting in line, no, how about 2 or 3, right? Like, no thank you, or I'll pretend like I didn't see the sign or read it or something. Like, no, like, okay. And I feel like that's important in today's society. It's like, if everyone always conforms, we're gonna walk down a cliff collectively very fast. There needs to always be that one person that says, hey, you know, I'm gonna take a stand and I'm gonna say no. And you can't force everyone to drink water, right? So I think a lot of times people do conform out of fear, but that's another story. So let me move on. So I was 6, 7 almost when 9/11 happened, and all I remember is the teachers sobbing, wiping tissues on their face, shaking. I remember this one lady like she was, okay, maybe she was being a little too dramatic, but I mean, it was scary, right? Like, for that to be like blasting all over those little TVs back then, you know, they had those little box TVs. They were like, oh my god, you know, and it was scary. Maybe she knew someone who was in that building, or like, I mean, it was horrible, you know. But I didn't cry. I was like, what the heck's going on, you know? I wasn't afraid for some reason. I kind of knew deep down. Like, I was like, I've been on this timeline before. Looking back, that's how it feels like. We've been here before. It's gonna be okay. Like, I don't know why I felt like everything ultimately was gonna be okay. Even though it affected things, you know, drastically. But everyone was freaking out. They're like, oh my god, everyone has to go home. And so thankfully I was only a walking distance from home. My mom came, picked me up. I walked home. I'm like, Mom, what's going on? She's like, I have no idea. Like, you know, this is just, I don't think they even spoke about it much with us because they didn't even know. Like, this is something that you just don't hear about typically. And I think we kept her calm. And then I think we all went back to school the very next day, I think. I don't know if we took a week off. I don't think so. But, or if it was a weekend, we came back on the Monday, right? Like, I just don't remember really. Yeah. So, anyway, so that was really like a weird moment in life, and something I didn't have any understanding of as a 6-7-year-old. Like, I didn't get emotional about it because I'm like, I had no idea what's going on. It's just like a really weird time to be alive, But back then, like, there weren't that many crazy events, especially one after the other. It seems like every day there's a crazy world event that happens every day now, even multiple events a day, that, like, we're so used to getting bombarded by it. That kind of, like, prepared us for, now and the future, I suppose. All the changes we're going through. So, then we, had to write about it, and here's, like, what we heard about it, who we knew, what stories we heard, or what we learned about that day, and it's like, but we didn't know anything besides what we were told, like, it's just, how you used to have to write about, like, Martin Luther and Rosa Parks, like, they added it to the curriculum, like, all of a sudden, and it just kind of was what was supposed to be done or taught, which I found interesting. Like, I always question things. I'm like, why? Why? What was the hurry? What was the rush to add that to our curriculum? Like, why? But I'm just an open thinker nowadays, I suppose. But anyway, so I'm 8 years old. I was in the year 2002, so 8 was one of the most eventful ages, I would say. A lot happened. I had this horrible stomach bug that it was awful. I had horrible stomach pains for 5 days. I had to go to the hospital, get CAT scans, IV. Oh, it was awful. And they didn't know what to do. Test results came back clear, negative, everything. Like, just took a Tylenol. Finally, on the 5th day, the 6th day, it went away. And it's like, what the heck was that? Was it just some random growing pains or inflammation? Or, yeah, so it still was very, very traumatizing. Like, that was more traumatizing than almost drowning in a swimming pool. Like, that at 5 and then that at 8, I think really shaped me to who I am today, and that really made me, that kind of messed me up, like, for a while in my mind. Like, it took me so long to let go of the fear that would happen again. Like, I was so afraid that would happen again, to the point even nowadays sometimes I'm like, my stomach will hurt after a certain meal, and I'm like, oh my god, like, oh, I hope it's not something that I take a bathroom break and come back and be like, oh, that was just a normal, bowel movement. But, still to this day, it's like, oh my god, what if something like that ever happens again? Because it happened again when I was 14, but this time for only 2 days, and I just decided, no, hospital, just tough enough, sit it out, and let it happen. And that was, again, just awful pains, awful. I don't know why that happened twice in my life. No clue, but again, very, very, and again, at that another vulnerable age, 14, it's like, there's like only like 3 times in your life you're most vulnerable, like between like 1 and 5 years old, and then like the early teens and kind of preteen years, and then like sort of right around when you're like after teens and then early 20s. Those are the like most vulnerable, and it feels like something always happened in those most vulnerable ages that just totally went wrong and could have panned out better. but it didn't. And so I had to work through a lot of issues, and just let kind of time heal them, because, I didn't even know how to work through those issues. I just kind of let time pass by to the point where I just totally forget about it unless I bring it up, But that's one of the things I think of when I'm 8 years old. That's the first thing I think of, is like, I had a beautiful time, a beautiful year. When I was 8, I had a lot done, accomplished. I went, I think, to Macedonia for the second time. The first time, I think I was like 5 or 6. I don't remember it much, but this time I remembered more. And it's like, when you're older, you remember more, of course. So yeah, that was my first like memorable experience of Macedonia, what it was like, and my experience there, my impressions. And every time we went to Macedonia, I'd go there for 2.5 months with my brother. But I think when I was 8, I went alone, which was terrifying, but it was an experience. So yeah, basically, when I was 9, I remember I got into some huge trouble because my friend at the time showed me this website, and I went on this website, and I won't go into it, but yeah, they saw my browsing history and were like freaking out, like, you shouldn't be looking at these things as a 9-year-old, and they were like, you're gonna give us viruses, it's not your computer. And I'm like, oh my god, like, I was so embarrassed. And that was my first memory of being humiliated and embarrassed, and to the point where, like, they told their friends about it, and I'm like, oh my god, like, and I think that shaped who I am today, because I'm still to this day ashamed of talking about, like, things like my, sexuality, and like what I'm into, what I'm interested in with partners. Like, when they ask, like, what are you into, and stuff like that makes me hella uncomfortable still to this day. I'm like, because there's, I guess, this like underlying deep down shame of that, and being okay with that part of me. That's why I struggled, with partners for so long, and honestly still do, and I'm not like really the type of person to like even crave that or want that much nowadays, because it's like it doesn't make me comfortable, right? Like, so yeah, I think that contributed a lot, is like being shamed for seeing something like that, even if I was too young. And again, it was not me looking up those things, it was my friend, and then passing it to me, and then but yeah, still, it was like, I didn't have that judgment back then, or someone to tell me like, oh, don't do that, and that's why the internet is so scary for younger generation, because they're so open and vulnerable. Now, like, 8-year-olds are like cussing each other out in school. I'm sure they are, how much things have changed, but back then in their era and generation, that wasn't appropriate. So that's all I remember. Like, I remember my 9th birthday, I was so, like, because this happened like a day before my birthday, so they were like, oh, you're not celebrating your 9th birthday. So like, my 9th birthday was awful. I just remember getting shamed the whole day, and like, shame on you, and you're so bad, and you're gonna give us this computer virus, and like, oh my god, it was just awful. I never spoke about that, but yeah, that's very true. And then we moved into that, I think that year, into this little house too, in what was called, well, I'm not going to say the name of the town, but yeah, it was this little town, and that was the first time we lived in the suburbs, and I loved it. I loved the peace, the quiet, the nature. There was this dog on the street in the neighborhood that always walked me home from school after I would get dropped off, and it was like kind of like my security dog. It was not my dog, but it was just like a street dog, and he would always walk me home, and I think that was an angel, just like really a guardian protecting me, because there was one kid on that same street that got taken. That's all I'll say, because he thought like, oh, it was one of those that said, oh, my mom told me to pick you up, right? And he got taken. So I think that dog was like my angels work through animals, so he kind of walked me home and protected me, and like if someone got too close, he would growl at them. So yeah, it was kind of like my angel dog, and I loved that dog so much, and I knew it was an angel. He passed ever since. Like, I remember crying about that dog because the first time we lived in that neighborhood, the dog went up to me and was so loving, and I love that big lab. And that was when we were first house hunting and looking for houses, so we drove away, and I remember sobbing in the car because I wanted to see that dog again, and that's how I knew I was meant to live there. So we ended up picking that house. And, you know, children are connected to like the spirits and angels too, so but yeah, as a kid I always was like, I remember just making like mud pies and, you know, putting things together with seashells and like talking to the butterflies, touching the trees and meditating next to them, and like talking to the animal spirits and nature spirits. Like, that's all I did early on. I always had this like Native American connection. Like, early on I drew like natives on paper, and when we have art projects I would like do something like Native American inspired, and like that's why like I always included and incorporated that work in my art on YouTube in my early videos, like things like caveman, Uga Chunga, like, you know, things like that. And people always said cultural appropriation, but like, no, I actually felt like that was me. And then I discovered, yeah, I did end up having this past life as this kind of Asian native woman who was a slave. So I'm like, oh, that makes sense, you know, that makes a lot of sense now. And so, yeah, so it definitely felt like home, and I always was drawn to the Oriental culture, even growing up. Even my father was, and like I kind of rubbed off on me, right? And that kind of drew me in, like Chinese food, and like, you know, the lettering, the symbology. Then I learned Reiki, and I'm like, all these symbols look very familiar to me, you know. Somehow it was just very interesting how they all connected. You know, sometimes you learn things about yourself in life, and then you don't even know it until later. It's like, oh damn, I see how that connected with that time in your existence. So anyway, oh, and the martial arts drew me in to Taekwondo, like that kind of thing, you know. Growing up in an Asian street, I'm like, you know, it all kind of makes sense now, it connects. So I feel like, well, one, I miss that dog, and to this day, I want a big dog like that, like a golden retriever or a lab. Maybe a lab, they're just so cute. I'm so tempted to get one now, I'm gonna be honest with you. But it would be a bit much right now, but it's a dream. You know, maybe someday. But anyway, so I know people say adoption, but there's still an expense in general. Like, it's just a responsibility. Yeah. So anyway, I was 10. That was the year 2003. 2004, sorry. And then this is when like my family really started to do really well financially, into 11 years old in 2005. And I just remember every month we went somewhere on vacation, like literally every month. And we owned property here in Florida and in Illinois and in Wisconsin. And we just back and forth, like, you know, I was in school, but like barely. And I would have like stacks of homework missing. And the kids would be like, always like, oh, why are you the only one like never in class, you know? But like, yeah, my family was doing really great at the time, and so obviously like that played a huge role. But I always just had to do a lot of the homework on my own, and that kind of caused my grades to slip after a while, and they thought it was because I wasn't paying attention. No, it's because every month we're going somewhere, and it's like I would miss a whole week of school, and it's like, obviously that's going to add up when I'm not in class, and they give me assignments and expect me to do something that I cannot do, you know. So I'm surprised I even passed that, the 4th grade. Anyway, I remember the teacher yelling at me in front of everyone that I missed one math assignment. The one time I missed a math assignment, he yelled at me in front of everyone, and it wasn't even him that's the math teacher. The math teacher told him that I missed an assignment, and I was like, are you for real? Like, that my eyes were starting to like well up with tears, without crying, but I was like so humiliated and ashamed. The shame, why are people, it's not healthy to shame people, you know, it's just like it's so messed up. Even in third grade, I remember that one teacher, I was like, oh my god, I still remember her name, but I don't want to say. But she was a nice teacher overall, and same with the other one. They were actually one of the best teachers, but the one time they yell at you, it's like, it's always for missing an assignment. It's like, God forbid, and then it kind of inspired me never to do it again, and the rest of the year I had perfect, like, never missed assignments. And I know that's the way to get things done, but why? Why shame, you know? Because there's students, they get shamed, and then it's like, they still miss assignments, so I don't know if that really does work. But anyway, so... and it's humiliating when they do that, because it's like, you know, I know the first time they give a warning, they don't call home. So it's like, they didn't let my family know, and I didn't want them to know so bad, so that kind of scared me into submission, so to speak. But like, anyway, it's wrong. Something needs to change, and I hope so. I hope something changed in the school system where they're not yelling at kids, because that's really horrible. But anyway, so that's all I remember. As sad as that sounds, that's all I remember of that time. And I just remember feeling very alone and not relatable, because, you know, other kids were in school a lot, and I felt like I was missing out on developing my friendships because I was always away. So there's that. And it's ironic because I remember it was snowing. It was like a blizzard one winter, and we had to drive down to Florida. And I remember being handed all this stack of homework to do while I'm away. And I remember being scolded in the car about my grades, but it's ironic because it's like they're the ones taking me out of school to go on these trips. And it's like, you expect me to do the work that I cannot do. Like, anyway, so, it felt like early on I was given a lot of responsibility, and, I heard a lot, started at those years, and later on, more like, kind of, you know, before they separated, arguing and fights and stuff like that, and again, that kind of shaped me, and, especially my teenage years, and then I would start to fight back, you know, verbally, and it would just be this whole thing, you know, like slam doors, lock myself in the room, and yeah, like a teen, obviously, you're the most rebellious, you're the most, it's about me kind of energy, like it's almost like you're an amplified child all over again, you know, and that's when I came out, was when I was 14, sorry, let me backtrack a bit, 12, 13, the economy started to falter and wane, and that affects things, you know, it's crazy how much the economy affects things in your life. If you can eat today, if you can even be a little happy today, you know, like, yes, money, I'm sorry, but it's true, money does affect your happiness. If you have no money and no job and no food to eat, yeah, try sitting there being happy, good luck, right? So, especially if you have no protection, no shelter, no safety, no fresh, clean clothes, yeah, so, it messes things. I'm not saying I didn't have any of those things. I'm saying, like, try to be happy while not having this. So, of course, it started to make, you know, people's marriages wane, friendships, family, like, you know, and we kept moving. I remember moving from that small house, and then we moved those years. So I'm summarizing because I have no memory of exactly what year, but to another house. And then a year later again, another house. And it was this big house. And it was the biggest one we ever owned. And, it was just, you know, too much, even for, you know, looking back, even for 4 people, it was just too much. 2 kids and 2 adults, like, just, you don't need that much, space. And, I mean, my father put in like $100,000 on closing alone, and that was in 2006, 7. Like, that's like 200 grand today. And just crazy amounts. Another 100 grand on top of that for upgrades, remodeling, all that stuff. And then he had like a $70,000 car, and then 2 other cars, and then we had like 5 properties, and it was just like in 3 different states. And I'm just like, oh my god, it was just so much at once, and things were happening so fast. And I just remember that time just so fast, like what do you call a fast life? Yeah, that was what that felt like, those 2 years. I'm like, I could barely keep my friends. I had a lot of friends who were kind of like jealous as well. Like, oh, how did you get this nice? And like, oh, heated seats. Like, that was a huge thing. Like, a Mercedes with heated seats was like, oh my god. And then like, just too much expensive appliances, furniture, like all decked out basically, right? Like bad and bougie, right? And so, as if I wasn't already feeling, like I had it all, this made me feel even more so. And then I felt even more kind of like happy, but like at the same time knew I was missing something in my life. And there was always this kind of underlying fear of losing it all, at the same time. And maybe it was intuition, knowing what would happen next. But yeah, basically 07, 08 came around, and it started affecting things. So that's all I remember of that time. I remember as a 13-year-old feeling my first mood swings. So up and down, up and down. Like, I remember crying just because I had to cry. And I'm like, why? And then my mom was like, she didn't know it or believe me then, but I'm like, Mom, I think I'm a teenager now. And she's like, like she didn't kind of brush it off. And I just remember feeling like really moody. And then at 14 it got even worse, up and down. 14, 15, and 16 I was like roller coaster ride, several emotions in a day, mental health struggles, talking to counselors at school, really going through it, like, yeah, badly. So middle school, elementary school, it was happy and almost perfect, and very good group of people. I didn't have friends per se, but just like classmates that would call me up, ask for homework help, stuff like that. They would be there for me when I needed them. But it wasn't like I never saw them outside of school, so I didn't really have friends until no, I did have friends outside of school who went to other classes or other school in elementary school. So it was like what I call street friends, like friends you go with your bike and knock on their door. Like back then, no cell phones obviously for kids, so it was looked at as not really even appropriate back then. My first phone was a flip phone, a little blue mobile flip phone, with the keypads on it, no touch screen, at 5th grade, and that was early. And kids were like, oh my god, you have a flip phone in the 5th grade, like that's crazy, So that's when the jealousy started. And I learned about jealousy, and like, I didn't even know about it until I like brought it up at home, and my mom's like, oh, that kid's clearly jealous of you, But in middle school, 6th, 7th grade, mostly, bullied, like humiliated, verbally tortured, like humiliated, bullied, like thrown things at me. And yeah, I was like, that sucked. So yes, that was like 11, 12 years old, stuff like that. So that was not enjoyable, and those had its dark moments. But on to 14 and 15, going into high school. Was when I had it different, right? I was no longer bullied, but it was people were kind of scared of me. Because I kind of like really changed. I don't know, something in me just changed, toughened up. I was like, I'm not gonna have a bully anymore. Like, I just set the intention, like, nope, no one's gonna bully me anymore, and if they try to, I'll bully him back, and bully I did. And, you know, back then, there was, Shane Dawson with the, like, remember Shanae and all these, like, tough characters that he played, and that kind of inspired me, and other YouTubers too had this, like, tough personality, and I would kind of play that role, you know, when I'd come across someone trying to, like, tease me, or, like, try to go there with me, and they didn't, honey. Like, I wore, like, jeans with, like, beads on them, just, like, really urban clothing, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, there were days, like, my friend would, like, paint my nail black, or I'd have, like, black lipstick, you know. I wasn't emo, but, or goth of any sort, but, like, a different side of me came through, and it's like, you know, not the person that you want to mess with or play around, I'll put it that way. So, and I had friends who kind of had that tough exterior, and, when they were with me, it's like, no one could mess with me, and I made sure to know as many people as I could, so that no one could mess with me. So basically, I came up with a plan to know as many people as I could, so that if someone tried to bully me, I know their friend, and I'll say, oh, you know, they told me this about you one time. I'm sure that wouldn't be too nice if that went around the school, would it? You know, so that would shut them up fast. So, you know, it's almost like you become the bully after a while, right? Even though I wasn't really a bully, I was just more someone would be scared of, you know? And you learn that really quick for survival, right? Know as many people as you can. Be nice, play nice, use it to your advantage in appropriate moments. That way no one messes with you. I'm just saying. If we gotta survive, you know, in the coming years, and you gotta get to know your community, know them fast, I'm telling you, because that way you always are in an advantage. That's how you win. So anyway, or at least survive. So yeah, I kind of had that, like, mentality, you know, back then too. I don't nowadays, but, like, I needed to back then to get through high school, because there were still a lot of nasty people, let's put it that way. So I became friends with the nastiest ones. That was my secret. And so, and the ones who were also others were scared of, right? And then I became friends with the ones who got bullied too, or were the ones who were vulnerable to getting bullied. So that's kind of how I learned to play both sides. And then so I didn't really keep friends for long because of that, because I was so distracted and busy with, like, this game, right? It's like, how the hell did I have free time, right? Like, that much free time to do that. But yeah, I was extremely social back then. I was like, I'm gonna take advantage of this, right? There's no way in hell I'm going through high school and I'm gonna make it my B word, not it making me its B word, okay? So, yeah, I got to know a lot of people, but that also went against me, because then everyone knew me, and then when I would do something or mess up in some way, everyone would find out. So, that's the only downside, so, you know. Anyway, and did I mention I love the attention? Yeah, so, that played a role as well. So, yeah, hey, I'm just being honest here, you know, that's what I remember of my experience then. So, looking back, I wish I channeled my energy differently, but, anyway, so, there was a lot of drama in high school, and I remember making a whole story time, so I won't go too into it, but I can, shoot, you could write a whole book about high school alone, right? And it was just nothing but that, basically. My focus was always there, and that's that, you know. And my family did not have too kind of reaction to me coming out, so that shaped me even more, toughened me up even more, even further. And that's when I noticed life was no longer this easy game. It was like challenge upon challenge upon challenge upon challenge, and I became horribly depressed. I wanted to leave this earth several times. There's that. So I started talking to this online boyfriend of mine at the time, and we met on World only comfort and support and backbone at the time. And we dated for 2 years, and yeah, basically he was always there for me, and I'll never forget that, just at the time, a kind, loving soul who just was there for me during my darkest hours. And then I cheated on him like a jerk. So that caused things to end and us to part ways for some time. So yeah, it was a long distance relationship, but that's why it made it hard for me not to do that. But I did, and then there's that. So, you can't change the past, but obviously I did that for a reason. I was no longer interested in this person, and that's that. And it sucks because, the new person I was with only lasted a month, and then he parted ways and shied away and didn't want to be my boyfriend because he was going to move, and he just wanted to stay friends with me so he doesn't hurt my feelings. So that was hard, and it was my first kiss as a guy. As being a guy. And that was very hard, and I became more depressed, and it was just one event after another. And then I had a friend who unfortunately almost left the earth on her own will, and I was the one who saved her life because I got her mom's attention on time and told her to get help. So yeah, then they blamed me. She blamed me for doing that, and that I was the reason she's still here. And it was this whole messed up thing. We got into like this almost fist fight in the cafeteria. The security had to come and pull us apart. Like, it was bad. Like, just one thing after another. I remember having this really negative friend. Like, she would always spread rumors. I would find out that anything private I'd tell her, she'd tell other people, and they'd tell other people, and that know me and tell me. And I couldn't tell her anything anymore, and it was horrible. I don't know why my camera is focusing on my big forehead. Like, is it that big for you to be focusing on it? I think I need to do this. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. I need to, keep it focused so it doesn't keep focusing and not focusing. Okay, there we go. Oh, but then I don't like that. It gets so dark. Okay, that's better. It just needs to focus on my face, not my forehead. So, yeah, that was awful. And you know what? Honestly, hold on. I think that's better. I had to close the shutters because that was way too bright. I'm sorry, I should have done that in the beginning. But yes, guys. One bad thing after another. Family issues, fights, drama, negativity. Like, when I was 14 through to 16, I mean it when I tell you those were the worst years of my life. Those were the worst. Those were the worst, darkest, heaviest years of my life. And I never, ever want to go back to those years. From freshman through junior year of high school, there were years from HE, double flipping hockey sticks, and then finally the light came through when I was 17, and more light when I turned 18, which was in my senior year of high school. Junior year was still, it was just same old, like, I think it was my time to overcome a lot. I was so tired I remember just feeling so tired of being this way. I told myself one day, like, you need to stop feeling this way. You need to stop feeling sorry for yourself. You need to just stop and just enjoy. You can't keep going like this. You can't keep feeling like this. You can't keep living every day in this dark, deep heaviness, negativity, depression, surrounding yourself with this energy. And that's when things started to change. and I formed new, better friendships that were healthier for me, and this light came through, and I discovered ASMR when I was in my senior year of high school, and I was only 17 years old. Actually, it was before I started my senior year of high school. It was the summer break, and I definitely used that summer to my advantage. I really discovered ASMR my junior year of high school, but I didn't film until summer break because I didn't feel comfortable filming those type of content while still in school. But then it started to grow while I was in school, but thankfully still not grow fast enough. Like, no one knew about it, so I got away with it. But for my final presentation, in the last semester of English class, you do like your big final assignment. It's this huge project, and it makes up majority of your grade. I did an assignment on ASMR, and I interviewed Maria Gentle Whispering and the Water Whispers Elsa. Yes, when I was 18, can you believe that? I interviewed the Maria Gentle Whispering and Elsa. So I was really honored that they and I told them I had my own channel too, and so I think that definitely helped. But that was very kind of them to take the time to do that. And yeah, it was this big project, and yeah, it was worth it, and I aced it. And I just remember that, that was my start. I'm like, oh, this is the start to the community. And I still remember someone hating. He was kind of a troll and annoying. There's always the clown in the class, but he was like, oh, she has 80,000 subscribers. That's nothing. There's YouTubers with 1 million. I'm like, I just thought to myself, you wait and see, mother trucker. You wait and see, okay? I think she currently has over 2 million right now and over 1 billion views, so hot take that, troll, right? And I had no idea what was coming from my butt too. I didn't even think I would ever get to 80,000 subs, not to mention. Oh, Jesus. So, yeah. I think at the time I only had 5,000 subscribers. Yeah, so. And I remember the Water Whispers had 30,000, something like that. I wish I could find that presentation. I need to find it. That's a piece of history right there. I mean, that's a piece of. Anyway, so yeah, people. Oh yeah, and then one of the artists was like, "Oh, is there a recording of it?" I should have recorded it. Damn it! I said no. Nobody recorded it in the class, but I should have. I should have recorded it. Anyway. So, I mean, it was only a 20-minute presentation, but still. But anyway, so, and then I remember playing the waterfall sounds, and then I remember playing one of Maria's videos, and people were like, I don't like the waterfall. I think the teacher said that. She's like, it reminds me that it makes me feel like I have to go to the bathroom. You see how people were so judgmental even 11 years ago. They were judging the crap out of ASMR. They were so uncomfortable. The whole class found me weird, but they liked my presentation, don't get me wrong. But they were so hella uncomfortable with the subject. And nobody knew what it was, which was insane to me. I'm like, oh my god. It made me feel really more special that I joined something early on that nobody knew about, And I think the people who discover ASMR now, it doesn't hit the same. It doesn't. That's why I'm the new ASMR artist. I'm it doesn't hit the same as in the beginning, because it's that was truly the beginning. And when you discover it now, it's already this huge thing with billions of views. But back then, it's this thing that nobody knows. So it hit different. It was more satisfying back then, So I'll never forget that. That was an era, absolutely. And who knew that would create this whole thing, this living, the way I make my living, my lifestyle. Like, that's crazy, you know? And so, I'm so thankful to this day for that, you know? Like, damn, my life would be so different now if I never snatched the opportunity early on, right? But I have a feeling I'd still end up doing it, you know? Even if I discovered it like 10 years later. But yeah, guys, so high school was beautiful. I remember I got like straight A's the last semester. The last year of high school was beautiful, not the first 3 years. The last year was phenomenal. I felt so happy. I felt so like bright. I was no longer feeling depressed. It's just like something came over me. Something changed me as a whole and washed away the old. But I also would like to thank getting out of my teenage years for that, because, you know, once you're no longer that hormonal, it's natural to feel different, you know, so. And come into adulthood. So when I was 19 now, basically, I was entering college, and I went to the University of Illinois, Chicago, and I hated that I had to go, but I went for 1 year. I didn't want to go to college. I was trying so hard to make YouTube work, and I just remember during that time talking to a lot of media outlets. You know, they're now starting to pick up ASMR more, and talking to a lot of like ASMR artists that you guys watch to this day, and, you know, talking to a lot of people in general, friends from different states, you know, online friends, and, you know, doing collabs, and so yeah, I went 1 year to UIC, and then I went to massage therapy, because I wanted out. I called it quits, and I had a dream. And then I went to massage therapy for a 1.5-year program, and then so I was then like 20 years old by then. 21, I moved out on my own for the first time, bought my first car, rented my first apartment on my own, no roommates, totally by myself, funded on my own. You could live off $2,500 a month back then, and that's all it took for me. 2016, 2017, I lived off $2,500 a month. That's not how I was earning more than that. But like, that's all life costs for one person on their own, and now that's laughable. Now that's your rent alone. Like, it's crazy how much that changed. Now it's at least double that, you know. So great. But yeah, I think that made a lot of people feel like duped, or like, oh, they can't buy a house or afford it anymore, especially like Gen Zs. You know, I'm on the cusp of like Gen Z and millennial. Like, I'm like the last of the millennials, basically, the youngest millennial. But, you know, like Gen Z felt left behind, and they still do. So I feel like, you know, we were the last of the ones that had it good, so to speak, or still was able to travel, you know, and you know, at least live a bit. But like, I'm not saying all Gen Z, I'm sure a lot of Gen Z are doing great, but they're getting creative now too with these different platforms and stuff, but like TikTok and whatever they do. But I mean, if it wasn't for that, you know, they'd be in trouble, right? But I still think millennials suffered the most, because we had like '01, we had '08, we had 2020, right? Like, we had to deal with all of these nonsense and the economy going up and down. That we had it the hardest, you know, especially when, you know, there was job losses and people weren't hiring and people were getting degrees and they still couldn't get work, you know. So yeah, I definitely would have been screwed were it not for YouTube, absolutely. But I was also doing other YouTube. I was always doing YouTube, like even since '08, like I was doing YouTube '09. So I was doing YouTube before ASMR, so like, you know, people don't know about that, but it was. So, you know, I started very early and learned a lot about this place and about filmmaking and stuff like that. So, but yeah. Anyway, so let me move on. So, I moved from Chicago to Florida. I drove all the way down with my mom, and she helped me move, and she helped me through the whole process. She was nothing but supportive, even when I was in college, she drove me back when I didn't even have a license. I didn't have a license until 21, literally. I was in massage school when I got my license, and it barely passed. And, everyone had a license at 16 and their first car, at least a used old junk car that their parents passed down. I had nothing like that. And that's because we were at a time when we were losing everything, and that made it stressful and difficult. So, it's kind of like yin and yang. We had it really good. I had it great growing up, and then it's like the total opposite after a while. So I had to learn quickly that not to depend and rely on anyone, family included, and that anyone can let you down. So I had to learn to survive on my own and make it on my own. And although I was kind of a late bloomer in that department, I started becoming a very early bloomer in other ways. For income, I was in the top 1% at the age of 23. Like, who does that, And so I was really fast on my feet to make it as big as I could, early on, and just make it happen, honey, make it happen. So that's that. And hard work taught me, again, don't trust anyone, don't rely on anyone but yourself. You gotta put the work in to make things happen. So I was all focused in my early 20s about like success and like getting ahead and stuff like that, and buy and get the most you can possible. And then at 20, so I had like basically a lot of eyes on me, peak attention at 23, and then I realized, oh, maybe I don't like attention anymore. And maybe I outgrew this, and maybe I got it out of my system, and maybe I want to change something else. So at 2017, it was when that epiphany hit me, and 2017 was another one of those darkest years ever. I just went through it, guys. That was like, oh my god, it was an awful year. Like, YouTubers and blogs and sites and everyone just started talking about me and like this negative light. And I'm like, when did this happen? When did I wake up in this nightmare? Like, every little thing I say would be observed and nitpicked at. And I was losing everything. Like I started just, my reputation, and just I lost my best friend. And the world felt like it was caving all around me. And I just remember 2016 being such a beautiful year, and then 2017 again, like this yin yang, like complete dark night of the soul, total opposite. It lingered into 2018, and then halfway through 2018 it started to go away, thank God. And the light started coming back in 2019, beautiful year, but like again I felt this loneliness, like something was missing. I was depressed, and I was 24 at the time, and I discovered hypnotherapy. I discovered Dolores Cannon, and I'm still reading her books to this day, actually. I love her work, and so I went to study hypnotherapy. I became a transpersonal hypnotherapist after that. So, but it was just not like massage. I never used it ever. It's just sort of like, well, I did have a couple clients, but anyway, I never used it really after that. I let the certification expire. Like, I don't renew it. I don't renew these things. I just learned it. I did it, done. But it was mostly boredom. Looking back, I'm like, I just did it because I was bored. Had a little extra money. I was like, why not? Here you go. I didn't really expect it to be this whole thing, so it's just something I incorporate in my work from time to time, and a lot of the teachings. So, yeah. That was interesting. So, I always like learning new things, so I had a lot of new things I was learning, picking up in my toolbox of knowledge. And then I started more reading books again, becoming more faith-filled, believing more in a higher power. And so in 25 and 26 years old was when I really had my connection with God strengthened the most. I had this epiphany, this sudden realization. And that was around 2020. You guys know all this craziness started happening. and I had this like boyfriend at the time, and then I had another boyfriend, and then I had another one, and not boyfriend, I call him dates, but I call him boyfriend too. Anyway, if you're with someone and you liked each other, even for a brief moment in time, and you talk every day and you see each other as much as you can, honey, that's your boyfriend, right? Like, that's your girlfriend, right? That's your whoever you're with. Shoot, to this day I still don't understand like how someone could be dating someone. Honey, that's your boyfriend. You like each other, I think we just want to label everything on a shelf, and that's quite unfortunate. Out of fear. Because we don't want to say they cheated on me. We don't want to say or admit that we lost our boyfriend, right? Like, we don't want to admit it. We don't want to say it. That's why we're afraid. So, what I am gonna say is that 2021, when I was 26 and 27, was my year of I was always at home. I was writing a lot in my journal, reading a lot, talking to one of my best friends a lot, and that was my year, like, in action. I was like, I'm gonna focus on me, work on me, and that was actually, ironically, the year I made the most money. Like, that was a record year for me. So, it's crazy how much when you just do you and focus on you, how abundant your life gets, right? It's wild. And that year had such a huge impact. And I lived alone that whole year. So I lived alone for 2 years, 2016, 2017, and then 2021 I lived totally by myself in this house. And everyone moved out. I had this like fight and dispute with family, and it just ended bad, like, oh my god, I won't even go into it, but I had to call the police. But anyway, yeah, so they left, and then that gave me time to really reflect, think about my life, my decisions, my choices, my actions as well, other people's actions, decisions, choices. That is not all my fault. I healed through a lot of bull crap, and I worked with crystals a lot. I meditated a lot. I did the most that year. I worked so hard. I worked so much, and I took the opportunity to just focus on me, and then I attracted my partner at the time at the end of that year, when I finally decided I had enough of me. And I think that's why I attracted him, and it was so beautiful at the time. It truly was a beautiful start, but then it turned into a nightmare when in 2022 he cheated on me. But we went to a lot of trips together. At this point, I have no more hard feelings for the guy, If he ever comes back, I'll say hello, but like, I'm not getting back with the same person who hurt me, that's for sure. But what I will say about that is that it taught me a lot, and I think our world started to change a lot more, as you guys know. And here we are in 2023, where I currently am as a 29-year-old, at 28, I had my first experience of a Category 5 hurricane, as you guys know, and that just was horrible. That was shortly after the breakup, and that just was like, again, one thing after another. I always feel like in life I had to fight through things and go through things, but I'm still here. I still got a good attitude, which is important. I remind myself a lot of times, especially when I'm interacting with people face to face, like, you may want to cuss this person out, you may want to say something on your mind, but always have a good attitude, and just respect that they said that. We have to appreciate that a person even spoke up. How many people are getting ignored nowadays, including my ex. He still ignores me to this day, even though I don't bother trying to reach out anymore. But like, it's like that person that, there's someone in my life I'm ignoring. I haven't spoken to them in years, so it's like it goes both ways, yin and yang, right? Life is very much versatile, it doesn't conform to rules or standards. So, you give and you shall receive what you put out. It will boomerang back in some way, you know. So you want respect, you gotta give it first, right? So that kind of stuff, and that's what shapes your relationships, is your attitude and the role you pick. It's not, oh, I'm gonna get bountiful of abundant blessings and good luck this year because it's the year of the rabbit or something like crazy like that. No, it's what you decide to do no matter what year it is. You know, there were people in 2020 who unfortunately jumped the Sunshine Skyway Bridge in Tampa. And there are people in 2020 who said, you know what, I'm going to start a fitness plan, work out, and do something about this craziness that we're going through, you know. And then there's people who sat down and just did nothing and let themselves go. A lot of people let themselves go after that year. And, you know, became very unhealthy. And, you know, that made me realize the sudden awakening 2020 vision. It's like, it's a choice. It's not, I'm going to get blessed with money this year or this month, or, you know, I'm going to have a good friend that I'm going to manifest. It's your attitude to others, your choices, your decisions in life that shape you. And it's not what happens to you. It's what you do about what happens to you, right? That's it, because life's always going to throw darts. I'm sure I have a lot more darts coming in my 30s. It's what I do about it. And so I don't mean to share this story like feel sorry for me. I don't want you to. I still have it pretty darn good. It's, what did you learn? How did that experience shape you to who you are today? Did you do nothing about it and sit around? Did you call it quits? Game over? Or did you use it to your advantage? I think that's enough for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Be well, subscribe, tap the bell, hit all notifications, and check my website, Bomboni.com, to book your own services from me.